Hey, Stacey David here, and this is the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals since 1919. That's right, over 100 years building tools and still going strong. If you need tools, check them out. You won't be disappointed. All right, let's get rolling. You know, one thing that we really like to do is keep in touch with you guys by asking you questions and having you come back with answers as far as what you want to hear on the podcast or what you want to see on the TV show. And so Zach put some questions out. What kind of guests, features you'd like to see on the show or possibly on the podcast? So I'm going to read through some of these. And we'll discuss them a little bit because there's some really good suggestions here. A lot of these are ones I've already been working on. And then there's some surprises too. First one, this comes from Steve. He says, man, do a segment on the big red Camaro. Man, I am a huge fan of the big red Camaro. This car pretty much started the whole pro touring thing. You know, the big red Camaro was built by Dan and his son RJ Gottlieb. They started about 87. They took a 69 Camaro and just wanted to build the baddest muscle car they could and take it racing on these road race deals. Of course, the rest is history. They wrecked the car, they rebuilt the car, they've been doing this thing forever, and it just became known as the Big Red Camaro. And it really rose to prominence running the Silver State Classic Road Race, which we have done several times and covered on the show. It became a tube chassis car running a big block, and the cars run over 200 miles an hour, and with a pretty much stock Camaro body. And now, they got wings on it and that kind of thing now as they continue to push the envelope with it. But the story on Big Red is just really cool. Now, I'm working to do a story on it, but I will take a different approach than everybody else, as I usually try to do. And I'll bring it from a gearhead standpoint. But it would be a great story, and I would love to get in touch with them. I've talked to them over the years when they were doing the Silver State. It just hasn't worked out, but it will because I love that car, and I love what it spawned. You got to give credit where credit's due, and all these guys now running these muscle cars and doing this pro touring kind of thing, and the whole Silver State race and the high-end stuff, and the whole Fast and Furious vibe. You got to give a lot of credit to the Big Red Camaro on that. So yeah, that'd be a good story. Another one comes from Corey. He says, do something on Bob Chandler and Dennis Anderson. Well, Corey is obviously a monster truck guy. Now, Corey, if you look back through the archives of the show, we did a great story on Bob Chandler years ago. For those of you that don't know, Bob Chandler is the originator of Bigfoot, the monster truck, and pretty much gets the credit for creating the monster truck realm as we know it. Obviously, there were people building big trucks, but if it wasn't for Bigfoot, Bigfoot came on the scene like we did in the show, kind of like the Beatles. It changed everything. In a similar way, Dennis Anderson did that. Now, Dennis obviously is the guy behind Gravedigger. And Dennis and I go way back. We've been buddies for a long time, and we have talked about doing stories, and then I've talked with his sons about doing stuff. His sons are driving. Dennis is just a great guy. The thing that I liked about Dennis is that, he was kind of second tier, kind of like when Alan Pizzo came out with Predator and this and that was when Dennis Anderson came along. And the thing about Dennis is he drove that panel truck, with those skulls on it and everything. And his truck was cool. Keep in mind, at the time, everybody was doing, in the monster truck world, a lot of them were doing newer trucks because they could get them sponsored by Ford or Chevy or whatever. Dennis was just a backyard guy, and he took that old panel truck and he drove it like a maniac. If you look at old clips, he loses control and he runs over poles and he goes through the parking lot and all kinds of stuff. So people knew when that old panel pulled up with those red headlights, you better hold on because Dennis Anderson was going to put on a show. And that's the magic of Gravedigger. So yeah, I'm working on a story with that. There's been a lot of things that have been told over the years. So once again, I would take a very unique approach. It'd be very personal because Dennis and I, we've been friends for a long time. But I am working on one with that. And I continue to keep touch with the guys at Bigfoot as well. The funny thing is, I've got Dan Runty's racing suit, who drove for Bigfoot and set that record when he jumped over that airplane in Nashville back, 20 years ago. I've got that racing suit, and I think it's the same racing suit that he was wearing, and I got it when the guys at Bigfoot were kind of going through things and throwing them away, if you can imagine that. So I told Dan that I had his racing suit, and I said, yeah, it's kind of soiled in the seat. There's kind of these brown stains. I said, you crap your pants when you did that jump? Oh, he laughed. Of course, I was kidding. But he said, yeah, he's got a whole thing talking about that jump. It gave him some back problems because of the landing. Because, at the time, nobody had been jumping anything like that. So a lot of great stories there. Yeah, we'll definitely do something with Dennis and maybe roll in Bigfoot as well. Another one, Ron says, hey, how about doing something with Billy Gibbons? Yeah, Billy Gibbons is a good choice. I've been wanting to do something with Billy forever. Not just because Billy is not only a great car guy, but obviously he's a great musician. ZZ Top, come on, they're just one of the great rock bands of all time. Billy Gibbons with the Eliminator Coupe, that was such a groundbreaking car. Now, if you look at it now, it's very 80s styled. A lot of people don't like it now, but in the day, that car kind of turned the whole world to the street rod movement. It was on that album cover. They used it in the video Legs. The car was iconic. It still is. And so Billy deserves a lot of credit. Another one, Adam recommends, he says, hey, how about Dennis Gage or Adam Carolla? And, of course, Leno. Those would all be good guesses. Well, it's funny you mentioned Dennis Gage. Dennis is probably one of my oldest friends in the industry, and we get together all the time. It just hasn't worked out for us doing something on the show together. We talk about it all the time, kind of like with Gene Winfield. I've been talking with Gene Winfield for 20 years about doing something on the show, and then everybody gets busy, and we get to doing stuff, and then we run into each other out at SEMA, and it's like, hey, we probably ought to do something. So I had talked to Gene out at SEMA this year because, Gene's 95 years old now. So it's time to do something. But Dennis Gage would be great. Adam Carolla I've never met, but I'd love to do something with Adam. I really appreciate the documentaries he's done and his enthusiasm for car stuff. I think that we get along real well. Leno I've done several things with. Been at his garage quite a few times. Jay's a great guy, great gearhead. A lot of people don't realize just how much of a gearhead Jay really is. He's not just an enthusiast. You got a lot of collectors, like Tim Allen. Tim Allen's another one that somebody has suggested here. And Tim is great, but he's not the mechanic, at least from what I see, that Jay really is. Jay gets in there and turns wrenches, man. He gets in there with Bernard and some of those guys, and there's some great stuff going on. Yeah, that would be really cool. Mike over here, he says, man, Jerry Reed was awesome. He said, how about John Schneider talking about the Dukes of Hazzard cars? He said, man, that would be cool. Actually, John and I have been friends for a long time as well, and we have talked about that many times. Matter of fact, do you remember the Hemi commercials that came out that Dodge did? This is back, 10, 15 years ago, where the guy was like, hey, that got a Hemi in it? Well, John and I were talking with Dodge about doing some Hemi commercials. Of course, he was in the middle of shooting Smallville at the time. And, of course, I was doing trucks. I don't know if I had made the transition into GEARZ or I was right there at doing that. Of course, it just didn't work out. Everybody was busy. But, yeah, John's a great guy, and he's such a real guy. You run into some of these guys, and they're either not a real gearhead or they're, a little too much into the acting star kind of thing. Not John Schneider. John Schneider is a legitimate acting talent. He's a legitimate car guy, and he's a legitimate music talent. John had a lot of number one hits back in the day, and we talked about that a lot. He's just come out with a new movie. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it's good because John, he puts his best foot forward. So big car guy, though. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to having John on the show. This one comes from Jim. He says, man, get John Force on there. Man, just pinning John Force down is the hard part. We run into each other. He does a lot with Cornwell Tools now, and I'm always there, and we get together, and his family's there. John's a great guy. Yeah, he and I together is like something's going to catch on fire, that's for sure. And Ray Everham is another one that somebody is suggesting here. Ray and I have met out at SEMA a few times. I've got a ton of respect for him. It'd be a great segment to do something on Ray. And, of course, Don Garlett's there. He is again. Another one for Billy Gibbons. James says, hey, man, how about Kenny Wayne Shepherd? Oh, Kenny Wayne would be a great guest. I have run into Kenny Wayne several times over the years. Once again, he's a big Mopar guy. Obviously, we're both really into blues. I've kind of lost touch with Kenny over the years, so that's a good reminder to try to get back in touch with him. He would be a great guest, and it'd be nice for us to catch up again. Now, here's a good one. He says, how about some of the guys from Motor Trend, like David Freiberger and Cletus McFarlane and all those kind of guys? Man, I've known David Freiberger forever. Very talented guy. He and I have always gotten along real well. Yeah, it would be great to hook up with him. He's so busy with Roadkill, I just have to kind of grab him when I can. But anyway, yeah, that whole Roadkill crew, and those are all good guys, man. They're all good guests. Yeah, we'll get them on. We'll do some things with them. We got some things in the works. Can't tell you everything right now. Stay tuned. You got some good stuff coming up. When gearheads get together, it isn't long until the subject of tools comes up. Because tools are what make all this possible. You guys know that. And car guys and girls are passionate about tools. What's good and what is bad. And that is one thing that I have to give Cornwell a lot of credit for. They'll listen to what the pros are saying about their tools and constantly make changes to build them better. That's why they have new screwdriver handles and ratchets and all kinds of other stuff coming out all the time. It's not just to get your money, which a lot of people think. It's the never-ending quest to build a better tool. Because Cornwell knows that if you're not working and getting paid, they're not getting paid. That's why they're America's oldest tool company and still going strong. Check them out. All right, I have a technical question here from Kurt. And Kurt says, hey, Stace, I have a 1960 Ford Sunliner. Cool car, man. And I want to put power disc brakes on the front, but I want to keep the 14-inch rims, and I'm having trouble finding the parts. Let me ask you this. Why do you want to keep those 14-inch rims? I would guess that you have a special rim. Maybe it's a factory rim with a certain hubcap or something. But the problem, I don't know of anybody that has a disc brake kit that is going to fit a 14-inch rim. Even on a 15-inch rim, you're going to have to go with kind of an OEM thing. Usually, a disc brake upgrade required a bigger rim. And that Sunliner is a big car, so you want some good brakes on that thing. Now, if you go to a 15-inch rim, there's a lot of places out there like Wheel Vintiques, some of those sort of guys that make a vintage-style wheel. If it's a Magnum 500 or whatever, Kelsey Hayes wire wheels, I'm not sure what you're after or what you have on this car, but they make historically correct wheels in a bigger diameter so you can fit a bigger brake. Now, I wouldn't go ridiculous and put big 17s or something on there with a big, bear brake or something. That's like a 4-piston caliper. You're not going to fit that in there. But my only suggestion, if you're just nuts about this 14-inch rim, and that's what you got to do, you might be able to find something on an early Mustang, some of those early Kelsey Hayes disc brakes that were on like the early GT Mustangs, like 65, 66 GT Mustang. Some of those might fit a 14-inch rim, but even then, I would be very surprised if they did. I think a 15-inch rim was a required upgrade for a disc brake setup. Now, you might be able to go to somebody like Bear or Willwood and ask them if they have a little disc brake that will fit a 14-inch rim. You can't be the first person that's been wanting this, but I guarantee you there's probably not very many of you. So my suggestion would be to upgrade to a 15-inch rim. With a 15, you can get either an OEM-style brake or, there's companies, like I said, Bear and Willwood. There's other brake companies that make a quality disc brake setup that you can fit in a 15-inch rim. That would be my suggestion. You need to bring that thing to a stop. That's a heavy car, man. Good luck to you on it. All right, I've got a question here. This comes from Bill. And Bill says, hey, Stacey, you were in the music industry for a long time. He said, did you ever meet Dolly Parton? Yeah, I actually did. I did a couple of things with Dolly over the years. And I've got a Dolly Parton story. This will crack you up. I actually was in a music video. My wife and I were both extras in a music video. This would have been in the early 90s. When Billy Ray Cyrus was just coming out, Achy Breaky Heart had just come out. And they did this video called Romeo. It was, you can still look it up. It was a dopey song. Anyway, it was something that Billy Ray and Dolly and all of these other people did. Now, it was Mary Chapin Carpenter, it was Kathy Mattea, it was Tanya Tucker, and Dolly. So they were all there. And keep in mind, Mary Chapin Carpenter and Kathy Mattea were just rising stars at the time. Tanya had been around for a while. Of course, Dolly was Dolly. So we showed up there, and, you know, we had done some extras on videos and things like that. And it was, you know, the posturing that was going on around there was unlike anything I had ever seen, because obviously Billy Ray Cyrus was really hot at the time. And so you had all of these people that were thinking that they were going to get discovered at a video. You know, and we were just there because it was an extra $100. And they told everybody to dress in black leather and all this stuff. And at the time, you know, I had an original Harley jacket. I've still got it. It was the AMF one. It used to belong to a motorcycle cop. And so it had the real bracing across the back, not just the fake little belt thing. This thing's like a suit of armor. At the time, you could go down to the local store and buy the little cheap jackets with the padded shoulders, you know, which was just kind of like, I didn't like that kind of stuff. So I show up there, and this was all around. I'm like, I don't like this. But anyway, so we get in there, and everybody's trying to posture, and all these managers are there, and there's all this power parking going on and all of this stuff. So I sit down with Billy Ray. You know, Billy Ray was pretty cool. I kind of felt sorry for him, honestly, at the time. He was just new, and he was caught in the machine like no one I'd ever seen. You know, he's being managed by these people. He didn't know what the heck. You know, he was jumping when they told him to jump. He was doing what they told him to do. And I felt sorry for him, because I'm like, man, you are not your own person. You're just being told, you know, everything to do by your image consultant and your manager and all this stuff. And I kind of saw that with the other people as well. And there was a real tension in the room, you know, because you had like Mary Chapin Carpenter, Kathy Mattea, Tanya Tucker, Billy Ray, and they're all trying to be the star in the room, kind of. You know, without knowing it, they're all, you know, trying to find their worth. And then you have all these extras milling around. You had the TV crews. And so it was a lot of tension in the room. You can kind of get the idea. And then Dolly walks in. Now, when Dolly Parton walks in the room, Dolly Parton makes an entrance whether she's trying to or not. You know, and she is so, I hate to use the term, she's so big in every way. And I'm not just talking the obvious way. She's a short little thing, but her personality, she just bubbles with enthusiasm. And when she walked in the room, the whole attitude changed. She was so cool. And it was so neat to see her come in there. The guy was trying to mic her up. Of course, the mic went right down between her boobs. And she's trying to, you know, his hands are shaking as he's trying to mic her up. And she's just like, man, just reach down in there. It's nothing you haven't seen before. Oh, man, she was so cool. And so we had a good time. My wife and I, we left early. Yeah, I could only stand a half day of that. I'm like, I'm out of here. I've watched it back. Of course, I ended up on the cutting room floor, if I was even shot at the time, because they were still trying to figure things out. But it was a unique experience, and it was the first time that I had been up close and personal with Dolly and kind of just seen her in action. And she is a very unique individual. If you ever get a chance to meet her or hang around her or see her, definitely do it. She's very cool. And later on, I had a chance to run into her in some other events. and things. And she's always Dolly. She's just really cool. So, yeah, that was a great experience. All right, that wraps it up for us today. Make sure that you check out the GEARZ TV website. We got all kinds of cool stuff there. We got a couple new die casts coming out. Got some books coming out. We have all kinds of things going on. But the most important thing is get out there and turn some wrenches yourself. Get a project. If you don't have one, start working on it. And if you don't have tools, check out Cornwell. They can help you out there. Also, don't forget to check out GEARZ on GEARZ Nation, Amazon, Mav TV, and Motor Trend. All right, we'll see you down the road.